So, you want to play Claws of the Tyrant. Hello and welcome back to Pathfinder. My name is Philip, and I'm here to talk about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Today marks my next look at a Pathfinder adventure with a video player's guide for Claws of the Tyrant, the new adventure anthology from Paizo. For those unfamiliar with my player's guides, this video will provide a brief overview of the structure and themes of the adventure, while remaining light on spoilers. Of course, I say this video, but what I really mean is this video series. More on that in a moment. I'll provide a brief rundown of the setting and the lore leading up to the campaign, then dig into some mechanical options players can select to have a thematic connection to the story, including ancestries, classes, and religious options. In the case of Claws of the Tyrant, I do need to break up my usual formula, however. This adventure is actually an anthology of 3 short adventures, all connected to a broader storyline. For that reason, I'll be splitting this subject into 4 videos. 1 covering the structure of the adventure anthology, then 3 follow-up videos discussing the specific character-building advice for each adventure. I hope this structure will help GMs keep their players from finding out too much about the broader story if they want to keep the elements of later adventures in the anthology a secret. On the topic of secrets, spoiler alert. This adventure discusses the following major characters in the Pathfinder campaign setting: Tar-Baphon, Arazni, Iomedae, and Seldig Bedless. This campaign takes place in approximately 4725 AR, meaning the events of Tyrant's Grasp and Bloodlords are expected to have taken place. The events of Tyrant's Grasp are most critical to the narrative of this adventure, and players in this adventure should fully expect to be spoiled for that AP. Alright, with that out of the way, let's dig in. Claws of the Tyrant is a single-volume adventure anthology consisting of 3 adventures set in the Gravelands, the undead-ravaged territory once called Lastwall. While each adventure in the anthology tells its own self-contained story, they all involve a mysterious set of artifacts called the Bloodstones of Arazni, to one degree or another. The story of these artifacts is long and ties back to several mythic and even deific characters, meaning Claws of the Tyrant represents a major culmination of a story arc many years in the making. For a deity lore nerd like me, this adventure is an absolute blast, and was a lot of fun to read. The first adventure in the anthology is titled Gravelands Survivors, and takes first-level heroes through a survival horror story as they attempt to evade the undead hordes of the Gravelands and reach safety. The second adventure, titled Ashes for Ozem, sees 7th-level characters attempting to pull off a heist. Finally, the third adventure, Of Blood and Faith, puts players in the role of 18th-level characters, attempting to stop a powerful magical ritual which threatens to rewrite the fabric of divinity itself. No one of these adventures is a 10 out of 10 experience on its own, but as an anthology, the Claws of the Tyrant book does succeed in becoming more than the sum of its parts. On top of that, I think each of the adventures has fundamentally good bones, and can be fairly easily adjusted to elevate the experience at your table. While each of the adventures has its own themes, which I will discuss in detail in the subsequent videos in this series, a few overarching themes certainly run through all of them, and serve to connect the narratives. Undeath is the most obvious connecting thread between the 3, and the prevalence of undead beings will be felt throughout the collection. Interestingly, because of the shifting perspectives throughout the anthology, you'll actually get a variety of perspectives on the idea of undeath as you play. Some characters see the undead as nightmarish horrors, while others see them as the perfected form of existence, and still others see them as unholy blights, which must be destroyed. Another theme, which connects these adventures, is the turning of the great wheels of history. Since all three stories tell different chapters of an interconnected narrative, you get to witness the plans of Golarian's power players play out from a variety of perspectives, be they innocent bystanders caught up in something larger than themselves, agents entrusted with one task in a larger plot, or mighty heroes tasked with putting a stop to evil once and for all. These characters and perspectives might never interact directly, but you as the players get to experience all of them and see how they connect. I can't really do my normal where do we begin analysis here, since I'll save that for each of the following adventure-specific videos. Instead, I'll briefly cover the types of challenges present in each adventure to help you and your group decide if this anthology is right for you. The first adventure is themed around survival horror. It uses a combination of resource scarcity, social tensions, and creeping dread in the face of overwhelming danger to set a high-stakes tone for a low-level party attempting to escape a hostile environment. The second adventure focuses instead on an infiltration and heist. The PCs take on the roles of mid-level agents, who've been assigned a specific task by their superior officer. This adventure is more professional in nature. The PCs aren't given much in the way of broader context, and are instead trusted to simply do their job, and do it well. The third adventure is the longest of the three, and takes the form of a series of combat challenges and short dungeon crawls. In this adventure, the high-level PCs are elite heroes who are responsible for defeating the various forces of evil in a fairly straightforward set of challenges. Similar to the second adventure, the heroes are trusted to do their job and do it well, but the adventure is given a little more time to breathe, and the PCs have a better opportunity to understand the broader context of their actions. While each of these adventures employs at least one victory point subsystem, these are generally pretty well implemented. At a high level, Gravelands Survivors is the most social of the adventures, while Ashes for Ozem is the most tactical. Of Blood and Faith, meanwhile, is the most reliant on straight-up fights. I'll be discussing each of these adventures in more detail in the adventure-specific follow-up videos later this week, so stay tuned. So, this is normally where I would cover the relevant history and lore which contribute to the setup for the adventure. In this case, however, I need to deviate from my normal formula. I suggest that GMs, and potentially players, if their GMs allow it, watch my previously released videos on the relevant characters. The Pathfinder Deities videos on both Arazni and Iomedae will be useful in helping you understand the deities most relevant to this campaign, while my 3-hour Halloween special on Tar-Baphon and the Whispering Way will dig into the specific history of the Whispering Tyrant and the Gravelands. All these elements are important to the ongoing story which Claws of the Tyrant is telling, but I don't want to waste anyone's time by rehashing this content in another location. If this adventure anthology sounds appealing to you, I strongly suggest watching these other deep dives to get a full picture of the background lore. For GMs or players who want to make sure they have all the resources they could need to read up on the modern history of the Gravelands, and to build characters appropriate for that setting, the following books should be useful, in addition to the Claws of the Tyrant book itself. Lost Omens Knights of Lastwall is a lore book which hyper-focuses on the titular knights who seek to reclaim their lost homeland of Lastwall from control of the Whispering Tyrant. This book provides excellent information on the factions within the knights, the types of missions the knights undertake, and the deities they worship. The book also provides mechanical options for characters associated with the knightly order. Similarly, Book of the Dead provides new options for undead characters or characters who fight the undead. This book also provides some excellent lore insight into the concept of undeath and the various nations, deities, and factions related to it. For a more detailed look at the return of Tar-Baphon, the Tyrant's Grasp Adventure Path from 1E is a great read, though I wouldn't consider it required reading for this adventure by any stretch of the imagination. Alright, so that's it for my initial coverage of the Claws of the Tyrant Adventure Anthology. Over the next few days, I will cover each of the 3 component adventures in detail: Gravelands Survivors, Ashes for Ozem, and Of Blood and Faith. Stick around to find out how you can build characters appropriate for each of these adventures. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.